At
which pays an advertising fee to the station.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call. Your rights, your calls, live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League & Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of Attorney Michael Timberlake, Attorney Will League, Attorney Heath Brooks, Attorney William Messervy. And hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back to Law Call tonight. It's Ask Us Anything night where we've got callers waiting. We're also talking a little bit about winter weather while we're at it. I was in DeKalb County. Cloudmont Ski Resort has got snow, so if you want to go to Alabama's ski resort, we took a visiting cousin Ray by to see because it's so cool. It's very cool.
And a day trip.
A day trip. Cold weather, if I forget or don't drip my pipes and I have burst pipes and I'm a homeowner, is my insurance company going to deny my claim because I was boneheaded and I didn't drip faucets? Can they do that?
You know, that one I think they're going to struggle to say, hey, this is your fault.
Okay, good.
Typically, an acute water leak is going to be covered by your homeowner's covers. Now, where people run into trouble is with the slow drip. And they say, well, this was a slow drip, but it was hidden behind the wall or it was hidden underneath the house. Insurance company is going to say that's routine maintenance issues.
Okay.
And it doesn't fall under, essentially an acute water leak. And so it has to be acute. Now, you're still going to go through a lot of trouble, a lot of problems. It's not a fun journey to make a property damage homeowner's claim for something like that, relocate for a time or whatever you have to do, so keep those faucets dripping.
And they may raise your premium too. You have no control over that, right?
Yeah, that's
Even
right.
if they pay it.
And you're going to have a substantial deductible, typically 2.5% the value of your home, and depending on the value of your home, that can be a lot of money.
We've got Rick on the line with a question from Killen. Hi, Rick. Thanks for waiting. What's your question tonight?
My question is, I went to a company and they said they were going to supply a service and their service failed and I paid for it. And now to get any kind of return on it, I got to go to arbitration. Okay. And I need to know what I need to do to go to arbitration.
Now, don't tell us what the company is, but what kind of service was it?
Well, I can't really tell you that.
Okay, that would give it away. Okay.
So, it's a struggle to get any sort of service these days without having to sign an arbitration agreement. But arbitration is essentially signing away your right to go to court. Now, you're still going to have very much a court-like proceeding, but that court is not going to have a jury. It's not going to have a judge. It may have a retired judge. But typically, it's just going to have a lawyer who's been trained in arbitration, and he's going to serve both as judge and jury in your arbitration proceeding. Now, typically, you still have to follow Alabama rules of civil procedure and Alabama rules of evidence, and so it can be a tricky process to navigate. There are a lot of rules associated with it, and the arbitrator should go over those with you. But essentially, you're going to go and you're going to put on a court case in front of this neutral party that's been agreed to by both the plaintiff and the defendant in this particular matter. And that particular individual is going to be, the judge and the jury, and he's going to basically make a determination. That determination, generally speaking, is not appealable.
Oh,
so you can't say, well, I don't like what the arbitrator decided, so I'm going to appeal to the circuit court. No, you're not. That was, signed away, unfortunately, in the process. So it can be a struggle.
And arbitration is different from mediation. Arbitration is an actual decision. Mediation, don't get those two confused. Mediation, because we do mediations sometimes with family law, where you've got someone that tries to help you come to a settlement, but they're not official. They don't get to make the decision. So very different if you are ever faced with those two things. We've got Margie on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Margie. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight? Hey, Margie, are you still with us?
Yes.
Hey, Margie, thanks for waiting. What's your question tonight?
My question is, I'd like to know, well, first of all, let me start like this. My daughter hired some painters to paint my house.
Okay.
And they messed some of my furniture up, and my mattress on my bed and my table. They took you know how you got the Miller part of your table?
Mm-hmm.
They took that loose from under there. They did a little everything, but now they come back. During the day, I be here, and at night, they be spraying something. And the reason why I said it was poison, because I had stainless steamer to come out and clean my mattress, and he said, this is poison.
And you think it's just the paint chemicals, or you think it was some kind of paint cleaner, paint additive or something? Or do you know? I think we've lost her. Painter. A painter comes in and sprays, and you feel like they've left behind some kind of chemical that's harmful to you. I haven't heard that before, but if you had a situation like that, I guess you could bring a lawsuit. Whether you could win, I don't know. Would be tough.
If someone was hypersensitive to chemicals, they're going to have a hard time making a recovery in a process like that if the chemicals used were, routine chemicals that have been, deemed safe for household usage. Now, sometimes those develop on down the road. We find out, hey, this chemical wasn't safe, and it turns into a class action, which is a little bit different. But in a scenario like that, there are some tests that you can run. There's some air quality tests and some different things to see, if there's something strange being put off. But absent something, being put in your house that wasn't made to be put in your house, you're gonna have a tough time making a recovery in that type of case.
And if you had a case like that, a lot of times people will come to lawyers and they think lawyers might take on the case. There's a lot of expenses to proving something like that, right? And she's probably going to be looking at having to foot those expenses in order to get a lawyer to take.
That's the tricky thing, a lot of times you can start with, they sell these air quality tests in Home Depot.
Okay.
Or we get this question a lot with mold, right? And they have this very similar test. You can go to Home Depot, you buy the kit, it's like $4 or $5.
Oh, wow.
And then you put in the sample and you send it off. Now to run the results is more expensive.
Okay.
It's you know, $100, $200, whatever
Okay.
it is. Those tests in and of themselves aren't going to hold up in court.
Okay.
So, but it's a good starting point to see, hey, do I have mold, or, you know, is this some strange chemical that's been put in my home? You know, you can run that kind of simple test, and then if that comes back positive, you can talk to a lawyer, you know. But you're exactly right. If a lawyer is going to bring a case in that type of scenario, they're going to have to hire an expert to run the testing.
Which might cost what? That's not cheap, right?
That could be in the $5,000 to $15,000 range.
Okay.
You know, so that kind of leads to question number 2, which are, what are the damages? Well,
Okay.
I had coughing, I had sneezing, you know, lasted for a week or 2 and felt normal after that. Or I had a sore throat for a little bit, you know, but after a couple of weeks I was feeling better. Well, in a scenario like that, you know, even if you were to win that case, you might spend more than you ever got back out of it. So you're going to have, you know, some damages as a result of it, you know, some sort of lung condition developed, or some sort of, you know, toxic blood syndrome, which we've seen before. So, you know, you can have the stars align, so to speak, and have a case like that. But generally speaking, it's rare, because either the time period goes away and the person's feeling back to normal.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of the old adage that almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Or it's a scenario where, you know, you're unable to really put your finger on what it is that caused the underlying symptomology. Because ultimately, you're also going to have a physician willing to say, hey, yes, this person has this condition. And not only that, they didn't develop that condition naturally or from some random source. That's a condition that, you know, generally speaking, is caused by this chemical or this type of mold. And then you've got to have the testing showing that you had that type of mold or something else.
Okay.
So it's, you know, they're hard cases.
We
They
got
really
this
are.
text question in. Someone who is from Falkville got arrested for a warrant that he didn't know existed. This was in October last year. Some kind of retail theft, and all that he's been told is that it's a third-degree criminal charge. He's not aware of the place where it happened. He's trying to figure out what to do with this. Does he just need to hire a criminal defense lawyer? He just feels like he's being falsely accused. Thoughts on that?
He may need to, you know, or, you know, if you have a warrant, you're typically going to turn yourself in,
Okay.
bail out, and then, you know, you either have an attorney appointed to you or you can contact an attorney. But, you know, in a situation like that, it's typically rare that someone doesn't know they had a warrant out for their arrest. You know, typically they miss a court date,
Yeah.
or they don't show up for something, you know. But in a scenario like that, it is possible, you know, that the store took video footage down to the police station after the fact, and, you know, they swore out a warrant. But typically they're going to try to, you know, put you on notice of that. You know, you can turn yourself in, and then you can, you know, address your grievances in court, which is what it's there for.
A criminal defense attorney may also recommend when you're going to turn yourself in, and to have a bonding company or somebody lined up. You don't want to do it on Friday evening that you're going to get stuck somewhere. So go visit
very good advice.
Criminal defense attorney and plan it
Yeah.
to be sure you're not going to be locked up for a long period of time. We're going to take a break. Be right back answering more of your questions. It's Ask Us Anything night.
purchased by Timberlake, League and Brooks, which pays an advertising fee to the station.
With William Messervy, Timberlake, League and Brooks in Huntsville, 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And for Sharon Doviet, who practices family law, all things divorce, child custody, here in Huntsville, 256-539-7337. You can find her online at www.sharonfamilylaw.com.
Cold weather, if we get snowy stuff, closed roads, you got any advice on that?
You know, stay off of them. Even in what you would think is a wreck that is not your fault, you may not be able to recover if you have driven onto a road that has been closed down by the authorities.
Okay.
So if the roads are closed, stay at home, do your grocery shopping beforehand.
And maybe it won't happen. Maybe we'll have a nice clear week, just very, very cold. Thanks for all your calls and questions, and we'll see you next week.
Good night.